of me?
Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Good morning, Vietnam! I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
You do! You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Another Monday, another movie, and another new episode of the CINE-MEN Movie Podcast. Happy Monday, moviegoers. Welcome to episode 224. I am Juan. That's Zach. Below us is Craig. How you guys doing? Did you guys have a good week?
I did. How about you guys?
No. You know, the Cowboys lost. There's no reason to celebrate a clinched playoff berth spot. I don't like going in after a loss. Yeah, it's bittersweet. But I don't know. Craig, what about you?
The week was good. Weekend's been kind of rough.
Good week. The weekend was good for me. My social media blew up. Everything blew up around the podcast page because of some of the DC news that we'll get into. Avatar is completely just demolishing the box office. I think I saw where it's scheduled to earn a little over $500 million opening weekend. It's going to be the biggest post-pandemic opening in history. So,
since 2020, since the pandemic ended.
Right.
Yeah, you said in history, so it makes it seem like it's a bigger deal than it is, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still slated to not break what they were expecting, though.
Craig, you're just hoping it doesn't make any money.
I just think it's overhyped.
But one thing that is not overhyped was last week's episode. If you guys want to listen to last week's episode, go back and search and find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Stitcher, and the Prescribed Films Network. Visit www.prescribedfilms.com and you can find us there wherever you listen to podcasts at. Social media, we've been praising it. Find us and hit us up on the social media. Facebook.com/The CINE-MEN Movie Podcast. Instagram is all one word, The CINE-MEN Movie Podcast. The Twitter is at CINE-MEN405. And the Instagram is all one word. So that's how that works.
Yep.
But like I said, the movie news has been kind of hit and miss the past few weeks, but DC is a mess right now. Dwayne Johnson unfollows Warner Brothers, unfollows Black Adam on all social media accounts. Yeah, DC is kind of like a debacle right now, and one of the biggest movies of the year, Black Adam, financially it was a bust. Already on HBO Max, and
is it really?
Yeah, it's already on HBO Max, and there's just beef and drama between The Rock and DC. So I think everything is completely being reamped. Henry Cavill is no longer Superman. They completely dropped Ezra Miller, Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman. Everything is scrapped. There's even word.
I think Jason Momoa is not Aquaman anymore. I think he's going to do some other DC character.
Holy shit! I've missed out on a lot of this. Then I was just
so James Gunn and DC is completely reamped and cutting everything out. The only thing that is continuing is the Joker 2 and Robert Pattinson's The Batman.
Suicide Squad, is that?
That's done.
That's done. They're not adding anything else.
John Cena's Peacemaker is done. It's all over.
Wow.
Yeah, let me we'll talk about it. Let me read this tweet that James Gunn posted today. So this is what he said verbatim. Exactly. So what one of the things Peter and I, who is his producing partner, one of the things Peter and I were aware of when we took the job as heads of DC Studios was a certain minority of people online that could be, uproarious and unkind, to say the least. Our choices for the DCU are based upon what we believe is best for the story and best for the DC characters, who have been around for nearly 85 years. Perhaps these choices are great, perhaps not, but they are made with sincere hearts and integrity and always with the story in mind. No one loves to be harassed or called names, but to be frank, we've been through significantly worse. Disrespectful outcry will never ever affect our actions. We were aware there would be a period of turbulence when we took this gig. And we know we would sometimes have to make difficult and not so obvious choices, especially in the wake of the fractious nature of what came before us. But this means little to us in comparison to our jobs as artists and custodians in helping to create a wide and wonderful future for the DC. So, what do you think, Craig? I think at this point, we're just basically erasing everything Zack Snyder has done. Just start over, get whole new actors and everything. And it's just, I think all of us can agree, there are aspects of that worked. I think we all agree Henry Cavill was good as Superman. Gal Gadot was good as Wonder Woman. But it's just, like he said in the post, I think they're just cleaning house and just trying to start over.
Yeah.
Did you read off, Zach? I'm sorry, I was busy. Did you read off where Ben Affleck is going to direct some DC movies?
No, I haven't. I just read what James Gunn posted on Twitter. I did hear that Ben Affleck's trying to come back to DC. So
he's going to be a director. He's not going to do any movies.
Right.
But go ahead, Craig. It kind of makes sense that they're going to scrap it, because if you tried to continuously add on to what Zack Snyder was doing, which was already a mess, there's going to be people who are upset with it. Whether it's you're not going in the direction Zack Snyder was going, you're not going in a direction that we thought you were going to go or you should go. By scrapping it and starting all over, they are truly allowed to start with their vision, which is a vision that's most likely molded by what Marvel was doing, which is something that has a plan where you're starting with storylines and then making something bigger, not big storyline, little storyline, little storyline, big storyline, little storyline, medium storyline. They probably have a big set plan, and they're not just throwing everything in a wall and hoping it sticks. So,
yeah. Well, and go ahead, Greg.
I was gonna say it is sad that we're seeing Henry Cavill leave. I think he is truly, one of the, he fits Superman. And that sucks that he's having to step away or be forced away.
Craig,
he lost this and The Witcher back to back.
He'll be fine. You shared images of Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn over the weekend.
Oh, I did.
It felt like you thought it was maybe a little negative. I look at it as maybe like a positive, especially the way how I don't know I know you didn't like the Joker, but I thought that world that was created by Todd Phillips and that Joker that was created was a very, very good Joker. What did you think? Do you guys think that that's negative, or did you like the way Lady Gaga looked?
I think the Joker was decent. I don't think it's comic book Joker. I think it's somebody with real world problems that kind of just maybe saw the Joker as a movie and was like, oh, I could do something like that. It didn't feel like it fit in the DC universe, even though it's the names and everything.
But I think that's what I like about it. It's, it's very much like you said, Craig, a real world Joker, kind of like a gritty taxi driver type situation where it's just, society made someone or turned someone into what the Joker is supposed to represent, which is just utter just mental chaos.
But that's, I don't know. I feel like with these kind of movies, you don't want to cross that realm of, they're comics. You don't want to mix it into a real life. You can make it seem like it's real life in their world. I think it made it feel like it was real life in our world.
Yeah. Did you guys see the Oppenheimer trailer, the new Christopher Nolan movie that's coming out this summer?
I did watch it today. I watched it today because you told me to, and it looks fine. Honestly, I wasn't blown away by it, but I think it's because maybe I wasn't in a theater watching it.
Yeah.
I am interested in seeing how it ends up looking when it's all finished. So
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, and on to the truth.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Zach, you have some interesting truth facts about Titanic. Go ahead and let us know.
Yeah, so top 4 things you didn't know. Gloria Stewart, who plays Old Rose, was only 86 when she did this movie. She was aged by makeup to play Rose at age 100. She did not find this a pleasant experience. She actually died in 2010 at the age of 100, ironically. Reportedly, James Cameron spoke to and personally provided each of the extras, at least 150 of them, with names and backstories of Titanic passengers. At $200 million, the movie cost more than the Titanic itself to make. The cost of the construction of the ship in 1910 to 1912 was about 1.5 million pounds, which is equivalent to 7.5 million at the time, and about 120 to 150 million in 1997 dollars. And then the film was released on VHS in the U.S. on September the 1st, 1998, while it was still playing in theaters. The weekend after the VHS was released, the movie could still be seen in about 447 theaters in North America. So
let's get into some recent watches. Zach, do you have anything you want to recommend for anybody?
No, it's been a slow week, honestly. I did go see Avatar: The Way of Water. You know, we talk about on the show the differences between.
Don't get into Avatar.
Take your headset off. I want to hear what his thoughts are.
No. I don't mind hearing his thoughts, but how many stars would you give it?
Probably about a 6.5 to 7. So
too much to take in. Not enough story.
I'll just say that I checked my phone, and I was only 45 minutes to an hour into the movie, and I still had 2.5 hours more to go. So.
You see,
that's all I'll say about it. Yeah, IMAX 3D. It's fine. It's a classic. It's fine.
If it feels 3 hours, I think I'm gonna wait for video.
Yeah, it feels like a 3-hour movie.
Well, since that's all you really went and checked out, there's not really much that I got to go out and check out. I'm catching up on some just some Denzel movies, but if I had anything to recommend, I would highly recommend The Great Debaters was good, and Titanic. I mean, you can see Titanic for free on Pluto, and Causeway. I don't know if I talked about it last week.
I think you started it, but you didn't finish it.
Right, but it's on
Apple TV Plus.
Apple TV Plus. So I highly recommend it. Go check it out.
All right. What about you, Craig?
I checked out Bullet Train.
It's on Netflix.
Did you like it?
It's good.
Did. I enjoyed it. I thought the mixture of characters and everything in the movie really worked well for a train setting. I was actually upset that I didn't go see this one in theaters because I feel like it would have been a fun movie to see and check out in theaters.
It was funnier than I thought it was going to be.
Yes, it was much funnier than I thought. I checked. I'm still on my anime binge. I usually watch a few episodes a night. So I'm about 50 episodes into Dragon Ball Super, and I'm enjoying it. It's a normal Dragon Ball Z, just fun, yelling, screaming, power upping, the usual.
Yep. Well, what about you, Ed? Any recent watches?
Not 100% really, no. I've actually been playing.
Move your mic down a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like it's close.
You sound like Michael Myers.
But no. But no.
Nothing? Okay.
No.
All right.
top 5 James Cameron movies with the celebration of Avatar's release and with us talking about the 25th anniversary of Titanic. Honorable mentions? Anybody?
No.
Nothing.
I'm just going to throw out the original Avatar and The Abyss for an honorable mention. Other than that, let's start off with number 5.
5.
Zach, do you want to start off with number 5?
Yeah, number 5, I actually forgot to mention for recent watches. Just did a lot of like deep dive in Titanic stuff, and number 5 is actually his documentary, Goes to the Abyss, that he did back in 2003. Basically, him and Bill, the Extreme Paxton, actually went back down to the Titanic wreck and kind of just went basically section by section of the ship and just kind of told stories and details and facts about the actual shipwreck and just like what different aspects of the living quarters were. So it was quite interesting. It's only like an hour, maybe hour and 10-minute documentary. So I recommend it. So number 5 is Ghost of the Abyss.
Is that documentary on the special features?
No, I had to go. You had to go out and buy it.
So what'd you do? Did you go out and buy it or did you go to the library?
No, I got it right here. Bought it.
Oh, nice. Of course.
So.
Number 5 for me is going to be the original Terminator from 1984. It's sci-fi, it's grungy, it's kind of bad CGI sometimes, or bad prosthetics. But this one actually feels more like a horror movie. So that's what I'm going to go with number 5. Edward, what about you? What's number 5?
Number 5 for me is the Terminator original. Sorry. Terminator original, 1984. Arnold Schwarzenegger coming in at a really, really cool role. Awesome jacket, you know.
He was the bad guy in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy on that, but yeah. Pretty
Sarah
cool stuff.
Connor.
With the catchiest punchlines.
Yeah. Craig, what about you? Number 5?
My number 5 is going to be Aliens, 1986. Just a pretty cool sci-fi movie.
4.
Zach, 4 for you?
Number 4, probably contradictory after what I just said about the new one, but number 4 is the original Avatar. On this rewatch that I did about a week before seeing the new one, it grows on me every time I watch it. I think the story is just basic and simple. And I mean, say what you will. I mean, James Cameron basically created a whole world with these aliens. So number 4 is Avatar.
Avatar. That's pretty high, Zach.
Like I said, it contradicts what I said for the new one.
But I feel like the original is probably a lot better. I haven't seen the second one, but that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Number 4 for me is going to be True Lies. I talked about it a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago when we talked about Jamie Lee Curtis movies. But True Lies to me is very entertaining. I wish it had a physical media Blu-ray release, but I think it's coming next year. It's a real fun watch. If you guys haven't seen it, it is a little girthy. I don't know what it is with James Cameron making his action and sci-fi movies like 2.5, 3 hours long. But number 4 for me is True Lies. So, Edward?
Sorry. Number 4, I'm going to go with Rambo First Blood. Stallone plays Rambo, basically going to Vietnam and all that to kind of expunge his record, getting out Vietnam prisoners of war, and honestly, chaos ensues. So, yeah, man, if y'all haven't checked that out, I'm not saying it's a great movie, but it definitely is worth a watch.
Craig, number 4?
Number 4 for me is going to be True Lies, 1994. I agree with Johnny. I think it's it's a solid film. Kind of shied away from what he had been playing up to that point. My number 4.
3.
Zach, number 3?
Number 3 is Terminator 2, Judgment Day. I mean, truly, probably one of the best action science fiction movies probably ever made. I think The fact that Cameron came back to this universe and made Arnold a good guy and introduced us to Robert Patrick's is it T1000 or whatever it is. It's just a roller coaster of a film and just deserves at least a one-time viewing, maybe even multiple. So number 3 is Terminator 2.
Number 3 for me, we'll talk about it soon, I believe, but I think I'm gonna go with Aliens. The top 3 of these, I could fluctuate probably on any given day depending on how I feel, but 3 for me is going to be Aliens. So, number 3 for you, Ed?
Number 3, I'm going to go ahead and follow in Zach's footsteps. Terminator 2. The debut of Edward Furlong. Yeah. Arnold as the good guy, mainly. Coming in with the
jacket,
bike, all that good stuff again still. But that accent from that Austrian accent and little punchlines here and there. That's all.
Craig, number 3 for you.
They're not punchlines, they're catchphrases.
Hey, look, he still punches people and then says lines and
touche. Number 3 for me is gonna be as much as I hate it, the original Avatar. I hate it. It's a terrible movie, but it's number 3. No, it's as much as I hate it, it is truly one of the he created his own unique world. He created his own unique kind of concept. The visuals were stunning for its time. He pushed the envelope for 3D, trying to make something new and exciting for Hollywood. So I feel like he's done a lot for the industry. So as much as shit as I give it, it is still quite a good, it's a damn good movie. So that's my number 3.
Number 2. Zach, number 2 for you?
Number 2 has already been mentioned. Number 2 is Aliens, his follow-up to Ridley Scott's Alien. I thought it was incredibly smart just to say, you know what, we can't copy what Ridley Scott did because it was just a lightning in a bottle situation. So let's make this into a war action movie where, it just seemed like, these things come out of nowhere and they're just multiply until finally, Ripley battles it down with the Queen Alien at the end of the movie. So has a lot of fun moments. It's very fast paced. I think the movie's like 2.5 hours, but it goes so quick. So number 2 is Aliens.
Good bring up. Something about James Cameron just making the sequel better than the original. Number 2 for me, we're talking about it today, so I won't spend too much time on it. Number 2 for me is Titanic. Edward, number 2 for you?
Number 2 for me is Avatar. Honestly, if this was, say, 6 years ago, it would have been number 1. But he did some things and all that to de-elevate that. So, yeah. Avatar. Agree with a lot of what Craig said about it.
Number 2 for you?
Yeah, he forced you to watch it 8 times in theaters. Yeah, I agree with that. Number 2 for me is going to be
Craig. When you did Avatar for number 3, what release was that? Was that the theatrical, the 3D release, the release to outdo Endgame? What version of it?
Probably the release to outdo Endgame, because that takes some balls to sit there and be like, no movie's better than mine. My number 2 is going to be Titanic. Again, creating a.
We'll get into it.
I won't be here, but yeah, okay.
That's true.
No, go ahead, Craig. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Before you get out of here, though, I'm going to ask you your star rating, but we'll mention you'll say that right before you leave.
Okay. He takes what is a catastrophic event in the history of humanity, and creates a film that not only kind of creates his own setting, but it shows the significance of what it was. So the music, the score, the actors, it's all, again, another James Cameron movie where I want to give it a ton of shit, but it's also quite a masterpiece. So yeah, that's my number 2.
One.
Number 1 for you, Zach.
Number 1, Titanic. We'll talk about it here in a little bit.
Number 1 for me is going to be Terminator 2 Judgment Day. To this date, it is to me the greatest sci-fi action movie ever made. It is, besides The Godfather Part 2, it is almost a near perfect sequel. And it's just, I don't think number 1 is even watchable as when number 2 came out. It's almost like, the first one was cool and fun, but Terminator 2 just blew it out of the water. And it was such a great movie that 35 years later, they're still trying to top that one. And it'll never be done.
Have.
It'll never be done. That franchise is dead after T2. So
it's almost like he ruined his own franchise.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the only one that's the only one he really wanted to direct. So
he's never came back and directed any of the other ones, so that's why.
With the movie being so good that it just can't get a follow-up sequel since then, I think that has a lot to say about how great something is. So number 1 for me is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. You remember when we went and saw Terminator Dark Fate and we walked out of the theater, it was just like, okay, that wasn't that bad. I was like, no, it still sucks. Yeah.
In retrospect.
I think it was the Edward Furlong in the movie. So
Edward, number 1 for you.
Aliens from 1986. I mean, when you've got a sequel that's mentioned in other movies as one of, if not the best sequel in any movie.
Watch your mouth.
I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying, like, this is a powerful movie when you've got other movies mentioning you as one of the best sequels ever, or the way to do a sequel for that matter, like the blueprint for it. Because Terminator 2 was 5 years later, so maybe this was just like, dude, this is how you do it. James Cameron was like,
you didn't like Alien 3?
I got it both.
Oh, Jesus
I'm not
Christ.
saying. But
nice. Aliens is up there. Craig, what's your number 1?
Yeah,
I'm right there with Johnny. Terminator 2 Judgment Day. It's when you think about top movies of all time, it's right there. It truly is probably, if not the best sequel to any movie. And it's everything in that movie is damn near perfect. So that's my number 1.
That's pretty high praise. Number 1, we all had a different number 1. It's pretty good. Me and Craig kind of aligned on the same. But today is the 25th anniversary of Titanic, with a release date of December 19th, 1997. Google users have it at 94%. IMDb is at 7.9. Rotten Tomatoes is at 87%, while the Metascore reads 75%. The box office, the budget was $200 million, and it grossed right now. It's at a little over $2.2 billion. The box office. A 17-year-old Aristocat falls in love with a kind but poor artist aboard the luxurious, ill-fated RMS Titanic, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, Billy Zane, Kathy Bates, Gloria Stewart, Bill Paxton, written and directed by James Cameron. Usually I go around and I ask everybody, when's the first time you've seen Titanic? Do you remember the first time and what was it like revisiting for the episode? But I think we've all seen Titanic multiple times. I think we can all pretty much guarantee that it's the first time we watched it probably wasn't a fun first time watch. But honestly, I want to get into how this is different and how this is probably, I'm almost wanting to say, more than what I expected with this watch. I know, last week we talked about Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and how, to me, that rewatch felt 3 hours. Did this rewatch for anybody really feel 3 hours to you guys, or how fast did it go?
No, it zoomed by. I mean, we'll get into some of the reasons why, but this is like 3 hours and 8 minutes long, and it does not feel like that at all.
Yeah, I'll say this, then I'm gonna hop off. When this movie first came out, there weren't that many 3 hour long movies. And now it seems like every other movie is, tinkering with 2:45, 3 hours. So I agree. This one had some pretty good pacing, and it flew by.
Craig, star rating?
9.
9.
Yeah.
All right.
So later.
All right, man.
Happy birthday.
Appreciate you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
29. All right. See y'all.
One of the things I can appreciate about Titanic, and I'll kind of argue with anybody really, not meaning to sound like an ass or anything, but I enjoyed how he took a real life incident and he created his own love story around a real life incident.
Well, not only that, but you've got to think about a lot of this, and a lot of this probably has even come out after. Some of it may have been out before, but a lot of the detail in this movie, and of course I know it's 3+ hours, but a ton of the detail in this movie is incredible. You've got literal, apparent real life happenings that actually went on in this movie, like say the band, for that matter, guy throwing chairs off so it can act as little things to cling on to so you don't drown, kind of, and all that.
Because he could have went the route of the movie A Night to Remember from, I believe it's like the 50s.
Yeah.
Or he could have went that route to where he just kept everything from the actual events, didn't add anything to it, and it couldn't have, but like you don't even get that today in today's like cinema. Like he took just a real life event and created his own story around it.
Yeah,
and I think that's what a lot of people forget when they watch Titanic. They're like, oh yeah, I don't want to watch some movie about, and that's fine because you're watching a movie about a real life event. But he's created his entire, almost like with Avatar, he created his own little world around the Titanic and the ghost ship and the sinking, and it even starts like the way it starts off with Bill Paxton being, them looking for the diamond is I think is a unique way to start the movie off. Because you have, I broke this up again. If you guys listen to us, I break every 3 hour movie up in hour 1, hour 2, and hour 3, and that's how that's how I feel. You can either have a good 3 hour movie to where you have a lot of plots, beginnings and endings in each hour, or again, I know you guys are pissed at me, but I'm harping on Lord of the Rings. Like last week with Two Towers, I didn't get that at all with hour 1, hour 2, and hour 3. But I mean, I got it this week with Titanic. So
the thing that's so incredible is, you're right, Ed. I mean, I'm kind of jumping back to that and kind of building off of it. Cameron spent 4 years researching this event. And if you listen to the Blu-ray commentary with, it's very interesting about how he talks. Everything from the amount of detail that they put into this, from what is the first class passenger rooms looks like, all the way down to the silverware, that has the
engravings or
the white star, the white star symbol engraved onto the actual forks and everything. I mean, it's just incredible, and you can tell that he gets very interested and very passionate about this topic.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The one thing I know if we do a different episode, I'm going to give him a bunch of crap. I get that. But the one thing I truly, truly respect about James Cameron that I don't think you can take from anybody else, and that literally almost no other film director or, anything like that goes and does, is, Challenger Bismarck. That's the one where he goes to actually look at, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so don't get me wrong. How many directors, film directors, can you say that's done these two things? Been to one of the scenes of a movie that they've directed, and then not only that, but been to Challenger Deep.
Yeah.
How many? Like, I understand he does some different stuff, but how many film directors can you say that have done those two things or one of those two things?
I mean, if we're talking about a film director doing stuff based off of a true story, I can probably name a handful that has actually went out and been to their site of where the actual events took place.
And that's that's still a short list. You know what I mean?
I mean, we're talking about film directors here. We're not talking about somebody who's created a Marvel universe or something like that. You know, I'm not harping on those kind of guys because, but at the end of the day, they're doing something that I can't do.
No, for sure.
Well, I think he said. I think James Cameron has said on record that I think he's been to the actual shipwreck like 30 times. Like he's been down there that many times.
I thought like 3 or 4. Not 30. Dang, that's cool.
No, he's
that's cool.
He's to put the time and effort not only just to, tell the story of Titanic, but also just kind of let people know about the history and the artifacts and the actual human tragedy of what this shipwreck was.
Because I know that he actually did interviews with a lot of the survivors, or at least survivors' families. Because literally, how do you get that detailed with something that happened, that far back in time? How do you get that detailed with it unless you have firsthand accounts? Unless you have, went to it and seen with your own eyes, or at least your camera equipment, how it looks, how it was, done and all that, because you can't replicate that easily.
If you guys haven't seen Titanic, it's free on Pluto. Go check it out. It turns 25 today, this Monday, December 19th. So spoiler alert, we're getting into details. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. The original shipwreck happened April 15th, 1912, with 2,240 passengers and crew. More than 1,500 lost their lives in the disaster. But guys, I was talking about this with somebody over the past weekend. The ship that's down there has been down there for so long, it's almost faded away. They don't expect it to last very much longer.
They said probably by the year 2030 it'll be gone.
That's insane.
It's just there's a certain type of rust that it's a bacteria or like a metal-eating bacteria that's just like eating the ship away, basically.
So hour number one, you have introducing Bill Paxton and the original story for the Diamond. You get introduction to Rose, her 104-year-old self, her granddaughter, and then her telling the story of what you don't know at the point, but her and Jack and the Diamond. What do you guys think of taking that original story compared to where he could have just started with the shipwreck?
I like it. I mean, it sets up kind of the whole idea of who Rose is. They kind of, you see that she brings all her pictures with her and her goldfish and all this and that. She's lived a very free life, which is by the end of this movie, you can understand why. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think the Diamond is the McGuffin of the movie, because by the time you actually get on the ship and start connecting with Rose and Jack, you just forget that's even a thing until the last.
I know we don't usually make people McGuffins, but you don't think Jack is the McGuffin?
No,
I
don't think Jack's the McGuffin at all. I mean,
because she's not after the heart of the Diamond. Jack's
Bill.
Right,
no, but Bill Paxton is. But
the
I mean,
the movie's not about Bill Paxton.
No, but that's why it's the MacGuffin. Like, you start off with this, but by the time you introduce all these characters and the actual event of what's going on, you forget that's even a thing until, after the ship hits the iceberg and he's framed for stealing the diamond and whatever, and that doesn't even get brought back up until she's older and on the boat and throws it back in the sea. So,
back in the sea.
Hour
number one finishes up with
Jack going to dinner.
Yep. What do you guys think of Billy Zane in this movie? I know we don't talk a lot about Billy Zane. I
don't think anyone talks about Billy Zane, but yeah,
nobody talks about Billy Zane anymore. But I think I think he's a fun actor in some of the movies he has been in, but he used to be the most least favorite character or actor in this movie every time I used to rewatch it. But for some reason, watching it this time, I thoroughly enjoyed his performance in the movie.
Someone had a really good analogy of Billy Zane's character Cal. He loves Rose, but he's a man in 1912. And he's gonna slap her, he's gonna demand respect, everything that that put women down during that time. He's the symbolism of that, basically.
What did you guys think of the scene where she is trying to jump off the end of the ship to and that's really where the two meet? What would you think of that scene where it sets up it kind of sets up Jack looking like he's trying to rape her when they look at the boots and all that good stuff, but it sets up pretty nicely to where their next encounter is over dinner.
Yeah, I think that the introduction to these two characters, there's always criticism about Rose as a character, like she's like just a snobby little brat of aristocratic family and all this, but I mean, I think Cameron plays it smart when you pay attention to it, and the fact that there's a scene where right before that she's having dinner with her mom or just in the lounge, and she looks over and she sees a girl that's kind of like dressed up, kind of dollish, very formal, very very ladylike, and it's just a realization. It hits her. It's like, oh my God, that's me. That little girl is going to be me in the future, and she doesn't want that lifestyle anymore.
Or even the scene where I think it's before church, and this is going into like a little mid hour too. The mom is tightening up her what is that called?
Oh, her corset.
Corset.
Yeah.
And she kind of turns her around and says, "Cal is our opportunity." I guess Rose and her family are well off, but not well off as like they would probably want to be. Yeah. And Cal is that open door to unlimited financial success. Yeah. So when you think about stuff like that going into the movie, it makes sense to why she was wanting to jump off the boat. This is her chance to get out. She doesn't really want to marry this guy, but the pressure from her mom and the family and the money is just so overwhelming. You don't really think of stuff like that when this movie was first presented to you 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it used to be in our opening monologue every single Monday, but it kind of got cut because of how short the monologue needed to be. But you get the I'm the king of the world in the first hour. Jack wins his ticket in a game of poker, him and Fabricio, and they get on the ship.
The only person that's not pissed after a week after they lost the game was the guy losing the poker game. It's like, wow, that turned out very good for me.
Was this everybody's introduction to Leo in this movie?
I think so, yeah.
You say no, I'm gonna fucking call you a liar.
I don't know. I mean,
did you see Gilbert? Did you see Gilbert Grape before this?
I saw Gilbert Grape after this.
Okay. So the first time I ever saw Titanic, it was still on 2 VHSs.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't remember if it was like 99, 2001. It was in between that time because my little sister's mom had a copy of it and she loved it. And every now and then, I was even going to say maybe Romeo and Juliet, but I scratched that. I didn't start watching more of Leo stuff until after Titanic, so I got introduced to him, and then I didn't read it, but this movie won 11 out of 14 Oscars. Even the lady who played 105-year-old Rose got nominated for an Oscar, but Leo. This was the start of Leo getting left out for the Oscars.
Let me know. So it was nominated for Best Actress, Kate Winslet, which she finally won an Oscar, I think in 2006. I think
for the Reader,
Best Supporting Actress, and Best Makeup. It won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, Best Score, Best Song, Best Sound, Best Sound Effects Editing, which that's not a category anymore, and then Best Visual Effects.
I think the only movie.
It's the technical. I think it's the technical aspect of what this movie was that won them all the awards.
I think the only movie I might have seen that was Leo's before this might have been The Man in the Iron Mask. I don't know why I think that, but that's yeah.
Hour number 2, you get things kind of start getting, things get worse between Rose and Cal. Things get physical.
They've already hit the iceberg, which I thought was kind of interesting on this rewatch. That's like barely 2 hours into the movie.
No. They hit the iceberg at like almost hour 3 at like 2:50.
No, dude. It's still in the first hour. In the first hour, the late first hour of the film is when they hit the iceberg.
No. Right. But it's in hour 2 that they hit the iceberg. They hit the iceberg like an hour and 40 minutes into the movie.
Yes.
Yeah. When I'm talking the first hour, I'm talking about from the 0-minute mark to the 60-minute mark. They don't hit the iceberg. Yeah. So they hit the iceberg in hour number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because this movie it's 2 films. It's 90 minutes of a love story and 90 minutes of a disaster flick. And so I think James Cameron
goes so fast.
Yeah, James Cameron did a very good job of evening the scales of what should be in one section and what's the other. So
did you guys hear, like, I don't know if it was an official Mythbusters episode, but did you guys hear the myth of even if the ship was going at normal speed, it still would have hit the iceberg because of how they went from a warm area of the ocean to the freezing cold Atlantic Ocean, and then the fog was so dense and the fog was so thick that even if they were going at normal speed, they still would have hit the iceberg because they couldn't have turned in time.
There's a lot of
theories. Yeah. One of the theories I've heard is actually if they ran right through the iceberg, it would have just like sank one compartment and they would have been fine.
Well, then you've got the insurance thing, then you've got the radio not working part.
Yeah,
because apparently it was.
Well, everything about the ship.
Yeah.
All the readings you can do from it about the ship from point A to point B, literally from the start of the build to the final sinking of the ship, everything was just rushed.
Yeah.
Yep.
If the thing about Titanic is, and obviously it's because of this movie, you can just go down a rabbit hole of researching this topic. I've heard things where. Actually, one thing I do want to bring up is on the Blu-ray. This is when it was re-released in 3D Blu-ray. There's two really good documentaries. One is Reflections on Titanic, and it's basically James Cameron, the cast and crew, producers. They basically talk about the conception of the movie all the way to the re-release of the 3D re-release in 2012. And then the other one is Titanic: The Final Word with James Cameron, and it's him and a whole bunch of Titanic historians and Navy officers, and they actually deconstruct the entire sinking from the iceberg until it hits the bottom of the ocean.
How long are those 2 documentaries?
The Titanic Reflection is, I think, an hour and 3 minutes, and the Final Word is actually a full length, hour and a half documentary. And they even talk about the debris field when the ship finally went down and how it actually hit the seabed and how it cracked and everything. It's actually very, very interesting. So I highly recommend those 2 if you have the Blu-ray. But it's just is there a character other than Rose and Jack? Is there a character that you gravitate towards, or you just you catch on to every time you watch it, or anything like that?
I would probably have to say let me get his name again, but Molly Brown is obviously an interesting character. I know she's based off of an actual person on the ship, but if I had to pick somebody, it would be Thomas Andrews. Who is I believe he's the architect, right?
Yes.
The one
played by Victor Garber.
Right. The guy who played the architect. Jonathan Hyde, I think, is another actor who plays Bruce Ismay, who is
a real character. Yep.
Real character who wanted the ship to make headlines. And I'll never forget that scene where I believe it's the captain who says you're gonna get your headlines now after they hit the iceberg, and they find out that the ship is gonna sink in an hour.
Yeah. See, like my on this rewatch, the scene that really I gravitated to the most was when Andrews is walking like by the grand staircase, and he sees Rose, and he tells her that the ship will sink. Like everything is going to be at the bottom of the Atlantic within the next hour or 2 hours, and like the horror on his face of just like, oh my god, like half these people are going to die. It's actually a very powerful moment.
What do you guys think of Billy Zane's comment when he says "not the better half"?
Yeah. And then like she responds, "You unimaginable bastard," which is a great line. It's just, what do you think? What
do you guys have any pros or cons to this movie? Because I know there's like, this is one of those movies who gets praised for any and everything that you can. Maybe somebody who's on here who's not a big Titanic fan. What are a lot of the negatives that you may not like about the movie?
Probably the length. I mean, honestly, would be a turnoff for a lot of people. Some people, even the hype can go ahead and kill them on wanting to watch a movie. This is the best movie ever. Not even going to. Never mind. Forget it. Kind of thing. Yeah. But then, some people will go ahead and dissect it about why is it a love story about some two fake people who didn't even exist. Like, look, man, it's telling a story that's not just going to focus on the tragedy and the chaos of the demise of 1,500 people. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, it's kind of screwed up if you really want a movie about 1,500 people, just out in the ocean drowning in freezing cold waters that you probably wouldn't want to last 3 seconds in, let alone literally drown to death. So
go watch that World Trade Center movie with Nicolas Cage if you want to watch something like that.
Right. It's a lot of stuff that if you focus on simply just the tragedy,
then I think the movie would feel like 3 hours long.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But I mean,
and I mean, a part of it, the testament of this is the chemistry between Leo and Kate. I mean, they make those characters work, and you want them to succeed, and you want them to,
They end up doing a movie together, don't they?
Yeah, Revolutionary Road.
Well, I mean, you've got Leonardo DiCaprio with his charisma and, all that, trying to make it even bigger for that matter in Hollywood than he already just had. But, playing this poor, guy who just won a chance to, come onto this luxury steamship that is, one of the forefathers of its time. Technically, or foremothers, I guess.
So hour number 2 has a lot. She goes downstairs, right? I think, or that might be hour number 1. Where she goes downstairs and drinks beer and has a good time.
Oh, that's hour 1, yeah.
Right. Yeah. But hour number 2 has the "I'm flying" scene where they're both standing at the top of the ship. It's like an hour and 20 minutes into it. You have the drawing scene, obviously, where he's drawn her with the necklace. But what about after that? You have the chase scene, where Mr. Lovejoy chases them throughout the entire ship, which is a very, very fun scene.
Yeah.
The score, I don't think a lot of people bring up the score, the music in this movie.
I think that's my nitpick. And it's not even a bad nitpick. James Horner's score to this is so hauntingly beautiful that you don't even have to be watching Titanic. You could be looking at the real Titanic and like that score pops into your head as you're looking at it. It's so irritating.
I think
the music is irritating, or it's just, what do you mean?
It's irritating by it's associated. The score is associated by the name Titanic. Like when you think of Titanic, you automatically think of the score.
Well, I think the one thing that any and everybody can think about is probably one of the more annoying things that might annoy James Cameron is because putting together all this score with his team, I'm sure he was proud of it, and I'm sure he's like, yeah, these songs are going to be huge. But don't get me wrong, My Heart Will Go On is the one song that everybody knows. You cannot see Titanic, and you still know that song. And you can be like, that's that song from Titanic, isn't it? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it. Everybody. I mean, you start playing the first 5 notes. hey, Celine Dion, and it propelled her career even more.
That's not a bad thing.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying it's a bad thing for the score because that overshadows by like 90% because nobody will not. I'm not saying nobody, but the 10% who does know the other songs of the score will be kind of an annoyance because that's the one song that everybody knows. It's kind of like your favorite band, and nobody knows 90% of the great stuff that it's got behind it, but that one song,
Well, I think that's more of a testament to just Celine Dion. I mean, like, when you think of Celine Dion, when I think of Celine Dion, I think of that song from Titanic. So
I was about to say, nobody else, like My Heart Will Go On is the main song that people think of. Like, I don't know another song of hers, and I'm not trying to be funny or anything, but I don't, man.
Hour number 3 sets up the ship sinking, and then you pretty much have that 1 hour of havoc with the deaths and everybody trying to get on the lifeboats. Man, and then that last final hour goes by super quick.
Oh man, it just, and I think that's one thing that James Cameron does a very good job about in this film is that there's a ticking time. No matter where you are in this film, it's like on the second day of the voyage, or when after they have the I'm flying scene, Bill Paxton reminds them 6 hours to go before the wreck, and then when the water starts coming up on the deck, it just flies, and then they do a lot of incredible, depressing but horrific imagery or montages of like
the old couple laying in bed while the water's floating up on them.
That was a real couple.
Or the captain going in, the captain's deck with the water coming in,
busting in. Yeah, there are conflicting. I mean, eyewitnesses accounts of what happened to the captain, but I think consensual, like as a consensus, that's probably what happened to him. The old couple in the bed. The man was actually the owner of Macy's department store. The wife actually had a chance to get onto one of the lifeboats, but she wouldn't leave her husband, and they went down to below deck and just laid each other until they drowned. Basically, one of the scenes that I think is so powerful is when the ship's starting to rise up and the dishes fall out of the cabinet, just like it's just total inner chaos.
But what's fun about that, watching movies like this, is all that is like physically happening. Like they made the shipwreck reimagined because of I don't think any of that was CGI. Maybe some of it was, but even them building an entire half a ship with its ass up in the air, all that was like remade.
It's it's a combination of CGI, practical effects, and miniatures, and all of it blended together. It all looks, still to this day, it still looks really good.
Yep.
Then you've got the people on board, because there was several different, like you said, the owner of Macy's was on there. There was several different big wigs. I'm talking big wigs of companies that were there. That some of them gone down and died.
Do you guys wish that they would have made the third class? I mean, and I know this is a 3-hour movie, but reading back at some of the historical events, like they really treated third class kind of like trash while the ship was sinking. Do you wish they would have made it look a little bit more darker towards third class, or do you think it was just enough time in the film?
Well, and kind of like you, Johnny, kind of doing some of the research, that some historians have kind of came back and said that's not really true. I mean, they did lock some of the gates in order for the third class not to get out, but by the time everything is going down, they are trying to get as many people off the ship as they could, whether it be third class, second class, first class. They were just, and that's the horrible thing, is that those lifeboats, from what I understand, could hold about 60 people, and they were just like filling them up about half,
which is a scene in the film. I think Andrews points out, like, there's only 10 people in one of the boats.
Yeah.
So, I'm surprised she wasn't nominated for Best Supporting, but Kathy Bates in this movie.
Yeah. She's really good in this.
Really, really fun watching it this time around. So let's talk about one of the most, once the ship goes down, you have the whole infamous door scene Rose is on the door. Leo's in the water. Let's talk about Jack's death. Jack Frost.
Jack Frost. Yeah.
Freeze.
Now this is actually like what you're talking about earlier, Johnny. This was a Mythbusters episode that they actually proved that both of them could have been on the door and lived. They actually recreated the door with the actual wood that was on the ship.
Oh my
God! They got two full-size men to actually lay on top of the door, and they both floated. So yeah, they both could have survived.
What do you
that
guys
aristocratic
think?
Life,
right? And who's to say that he put her up there? And what do you guys think? All this time later, all these years and all these viewings later of this movie, would anybody change the ending any different?
I mean, honestly, you kind of can't change the ending for that matter. But as far as Jack and Rose story, it is what it is, and that's kind of what makes it that extra pop right there, just because of the extra tragedy that may not have actually occurred. But I mean, you've got to think. I think that stands like as kind of a testament or a memoir to all the ones who did lose loved ones truly on that, and that may not have gotten to go back and kind of pay their respects at that place off the coast of Newfoundland. But that's really all it is, I think, is kind of his way of, displaying this story that one was from one, the other was from the other, but when they came together and at the end of the tragedy, it was just human life on human life. Essentially is what we all are, rich or poor, it doesn't matter. You're another life. That's it.
Yeah, and like James Cameron's pitch to the studio was Romeo and Juliet on Titanic. That's exactly what this is.
So we need Leo.
Yeah. So which
if you guys honestly haven't, I want to plug it again. If you guys haven't checked out Romeo and Juliet, the 90s version with Leo, I recommend it. It's a fun watch.
One of the things, and there's a lot of good setups in this movie, because like when going back to when Jack and Rose first meet, he talks about, you go in that water, you have about 10 minutes, maybe even less to live. And I think when Jack puts Rose on the door, there's that scene where he kind of just looks, and he knows he's on borrowed time, and the clock is ticking. And so I agree with you, Ed. I think it is a pop to make the sentiments cry and everything, but at the same time, I mean, it's sweet in the fact that Rose is able to live the life she wants because of Jack.
In 2012, I got to go rewatch this movie in the IMAX.
Oh, did you?
And, yeah. And when that scene popped up, I was looking over, and I mean, it's funny to look at now, but like there were people, I don't know if this was the first time they'd seen it, or if it's just if they're one of those who just ugly cry at movies, but there were people all around me they looked like they had just lost a loved one. It was so quiet in that theater, you could literally hear anything hit the floor. But it was a fun re-release. And if anybody gets a chance to see this movie like on the biggest screen possible, highly recommend it.
Yeah, I did get to see this in the theater when it was re-released in 3D.
I didn't see it in 3D. I'm glad I didn't.
It was a good conversion. I thought it was a very good conversion for a 90s film. And actually, I read that they are going to be re-releasing this for the 25th anniversary in February. So you'll have another chance to go see it.
Probably go see it again.
Yep.
Coming out in February too.
So
what about go ahead.
I was going to say that the last known survivor actually, who was 2 months old at the time of the wreck, survived until 2009 at the age of 97.
Yeah. Which, if you're 2 months old, I don't know how much of that you're going to remember, unless you just hear from your parents or something. So
Jack, you're going to remember Jack.
What about heading into the final scene of the film? At least I'll say what I think happened, and you guys can pitch off of it. She throws the heart of the ocean back into the ocean. She goes back and she lays down. Then the camera fades to all of her pictures and memories, and then you see her walking up the Titanic staircase with everybody around her. And then she sees Jack.
Yeah.
What I finally got from that so many years later was that. Do you guys think she died in her sleep?
Shrek 2.
She died in her sleep, and then that's her just going to Jack was her final resting place.
I think that, but at the same time, the best point in her life, and I'm not saying that any of her family wasn't a great point in her life and a very valued, but I think it's more her kind of wondering, like, man, this is the guy that I fell in love with out of nowhere, and what could have happened. So
because just that final scene is him looking at the time, and then he turns around, and it's almost like it's about time you finally fucking show up.
Oh, when you say it like that.
Well, but I mean that's just what I get.
Yeah, I know.
That, like, she finally passed away, and she sees Jack, and she can finally live her afterlife, however you want to say it.
I agree. I think she dies at the end of the movie. It's a setup because once again, Cameron's very good at writing these type of things. Where when they're in the water, he's about to die. He says, "You're going to die an old woman in your warm bed," and that's a setup, and I think that pays it off at the end.
Even in the song, it says,
go on and on.
Yeah. Favorite scene, Zach? We'll start with you.
I know it's probably cliche, but I mean, the how far Cameron and his team went to recreate the shipwreck, and actually when it breaks in half, that's always been such an iconic scene in this film. I mean, the fact that it's CGI, practical, miniature, and they all combine it to make it look like, wow, that's probably the most horrific thing anyone has ever seen. And then the iceberg, when they say iceberg right ahead, and it's just like the score takes off, and you think as a viewer that they might be able to dodge it, but just in that moment.
I would have to say the scene where Jack wins the tickets is going to be one for me. Another scene is where they are doing the whole it's like an hour and 20 minutes in, and he's telling her that they're flying and they're at the top of the ship.
The bow, yeah.
And then anything in that last hour is pretty memorable. Yeah. So, Edward, what about you? You have a favorite scene?
I'd say kind of when they walk into, I think you'd call it the grand foyer or anything or whatever. But when you see when you see the kind of magnificence that it had, and I mean that old school luxury, just finesse, very beautiful scene.
Another scene that I recommend is the when the dome busts open with water, and then it's just like all hell is broke loose, and then there's that scene where it cuts to the hallway and the water's just like spouting out between the rooms and the doors being flown off the hinges.
So your favorite character was probably the iceberg.
Oh, well, he's a good villain, so I mean,
or another scene that's funny is when he's teaching her how to spit.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys something. 2 questions. Do you think that this, looking back 25 years later today, do you think this movie deserves all the praise? Do you think it deserves the Best Picture title of '97?
Yes, and yes.
I mean, yeah.
The other nominees for Best Picture was As Good as It Gets, The Full Monty, Good Will Hunting, and L.A. Confidential.
I have L.A. Confidential and Good Will Hunting. And how good those movies can be, I think this is one of those rare occasions where this movie should have won because it's just so memorable.
Yeah. And there's if you ever get a chance, go on YouTube and put in Titanic SNL. When Bill Paxton hosted SNL, they did a bit about the end of the movie where they parodied it, and they beat up Old Rose like, "Where's the diamond?" And it's pretty damn funny. And why do you guys think Leo hates this movie so much?
Does he
in
really?
Interviews? Oh, dude! Like if you watch him in interviews, like when they bring up Titanic, he will not answer anything about it.
Really?
I have a theory, but I just want to hear what you guys think.
I mean, honestly, okay, so Did this certain kind of negativity of his start at a certain point? Like 2012 or something like that, you know?
If I'm just answering the question, I would just say maybe because of how much he or the film got spoofed many years later.
It's a little bit what Ed said, and combination of what you said, Johnny, too. It's
because I was tired after, you know.
he was trying to become a serious actor and be, you know, taken serious, but this movie made him into a heartthrob in the 90s, and people just wouldn't take him seriously until, you know, probably he did a couple movies after that, but then when he started working with Scorsese on Gangs of New York, it said, oh, okay, so this guy he's a real deal.
But he's the one who signed up for the Man in the Iron Mask, so he did it to himself.
Yeah.
Okay?
I've never seen that, so I can't testify to that.
Yeah, go check it out. You got homework this week. Star rating. Ed, we'll start with you.
Honestly, with all the research that gone into it and all the just different things that he put in detail-wise, I'm going to have to say a 9.
Zach?
Yeah, I agree. It's still a 9. I think this is still probably one of the top 10 movies of the 90s, and I think it deserves its place in Hollywood history. So,
I'll have to agree, but I'm going to go one above. I'm going to do a 10. I think with the score, with the music, with again, it's 3 hours, but it doesn't feel like 3 hours. And then just with how memorable it is so many years later, I think it's one of those. And I'm sure, is it one of those movies, Zach, that's on the registration? On the registry?
It made the National Film Registry in 2017. So,
yeah.
there'll be a copy of it forever.
So, which is good. So that's what I would have to give it. Again,
I think.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I just think the job of a movie is to, even though if you haven't seen it in a while, is to make you relive all those emotions and make you feel the way that you did the first time. On this rewatch, I think it still does that. You know, it's 25 years old and it still makes you sad. It makes you happy. It makes you fearful. It makes you, you know, exhilarated in some points. I still think it's still a damn good movie, man.
Yeah, so many years later, still makes you think, and love it or hate it.
Yep. So
those are our star ratings. If you guys want to share your star rating with Titanic and let us know, just use the hashtag let us know on social media or email, comment, message, and we will read emails next week during our year finale as we talk all about Denzel Washington next week. It is our year finale. We started talking Denzel in January of 2022. We finalize and finish with Denzel next week, the day after Christmas, Monday, December 26th, as we talk our Denzel Washington top 5 plus 5 episode. It's our first top 5 plus 5 episode since April. Guys,
what was the last one when we did? Was the last one when we did our top 5 plus 5 of 2022 or 2021?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So next week, guys, the year ends with Denzel. Anybody excited, or you have any thoughts on how this might go?
I think it'll go well, like we've had.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear everyone's list because Denzel, you know, like we've said, he's a phenomenal actor, and I'm just excited to see what things is what and what makes the top 5 and what's number 1.
Should be interesting. We'll have some emails. We'll have a girthy email bag next week. We'll also have some a fun top 5 plus 5 lists from listeners as well, and we'll have some. Maybe some special appearances, maybe from anybody else on the YouTube channel, or we might have also. I do have a special announcement as far as sponsorship goes that I will let out of the bag next week. But until that is, guys, do you have anything else you want to put in the final nail in the coffin of the Titanic? It is not sinkable, or it is unsinkable. It is not unsinkable.
The movie is not sinkable, but the ship is, unfortunately.
Neither is this episode.
It will go down, and you know when they bring up the the safe, and they find Jack Strawlings. This is where our episode's going to go in the safe. So,
Ed, you know what else? You know what else would have survived that shipwreck and that would have been in that safe? A Whopper, a double Whopper, double onion, double cheese, extra mayo.
Whoa!
You can take that one, man. That's yeah.
I think next week for the Denzel episode, we should all have some BK with us.
So
funny.
I mean, honestly, with the history of this film, with the history of the Titanic, you know, whatever theory or whatever your belief basically about it, we all know that 1,500 lives were lost. So literally, it's more just, I think, a memento to those 1,500 lives lost, whether known or not. So
yeah,
well said.
Yeah, it was awesome talking about this movie with you guys on its actual 25th anniversary. It's honestly, it's hard to believe that this movie is 25 years old, to be completely honest with you guys. But like I said, it's going to get re-released in February, and I'm sure it'll make another $1 billion at the box office. So you can hate James Cameron all you want, but hey, he can still make some damn good movies. So.
And our hearts will go on and will continue to go next week as we talk Denzel Washington. Should be fun. I can't wait. December 26th. This episode, the Titanic episode, will not upload to audio until Friday, December the 23rd. So you can watch this episode on Imasawa Productions YouTube channel, live or on demand right now, all the way up until Friday, December the 23rd. Again, audio version of this Titanic episode will not upload tonight for some technical difficulties. The Titanic episode will upload Friday, December 23rd. But, that means next week, Denzel Washington, top 10, I guess we can call it, top 10 Denzel Washington movies. We rank them next week right here on a new episode of the CINE-MEN Movie Podcast, the day after Christmas. So happy holidays, happy festive, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. Just make sure it's happy. And stay warm this week.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thursday, shorts and t-shirt weather, buddy.
And don't forget that Whopper, right, Ed?
Don't know, man.
So, all right, guys.
All right, next week, Denzel. Have a good week, guys. Thank you.